and welcome back to the Farg Motor Pool. This is our second out of what will turn out to be three presentations about my travels to the Sahara Desert and back in a Army WIllys Jeep, as you can see in the title there. A recap why, basically because I'd been fascinated with Hergé's Adventures of Tintin, especially the Land of Black Gold, in which he drove a red Jeep through the desert. So I purchased a Jeep. I restored it, but unfortunately, as we explored in our previous video, the Jeep failed gearbox. I sent it away. I couldn't have it back in time to fit it. So eventually the Jeep was restored, and we'll actually do an extra video after these to look at that Jeep restoration in detail and what happened to it. So meanwhile, I purchased a Jeep over in France. I brought it back many years ago and I'd kept in the back of my garage. So here we are. This is my partner preparing the Jeep ready to go. We'd planned our journey, quite a few days driving down through France, Spain, and around in a big loop around mostly Morocco, but dipping into Algeria there on the right as well. And a lot of that in and around the Sahara Desert. So I'd picked up my co-driver. No, that's not a picture of him there. That was in Gibraltar, and here we are. I'd arrived in Morocco, and as I said before, I was sort of in a very Western attire and frame of mind, and we just actually sort of carried on and drove up over the Atlas Mountains. And I can see my poor little Jeep there being overtaking some of the larger lorries up there on the Atlas passes, quite hairy. And at last we'd reached the desert now. So we were in the pre-Saharan plains, and my goodness, it was extremely hot. You can see us there, a picture taken by one of the other people in our caravan as we were driving through just the large and open expanses of the hot desert. To start out with, I thought it was great fun, so had my head exposed, and there we go, driving for numbers and numbers of days, but my co-driver was a little more sensible than me, and there he is with his headdress and some sunshades on. So it didn't take long for me to follow suit, as it just was a lot of dust flying around. And you can see us driving along here in the WIllys Jeep with the windscreen down. So it really was just miles and miles and miles and miles of open, hot terrain. And things didn't really change very much. But wherever you came near any sort of settlement, the children, as you can see here, would rush out and try and intercept us and see if there's anything we could give them. On a lot of the cases, we had to sort of circumvent the villages as not to overexcite everyone or hit anybody whilst we were driving. So eventually we got into what was described as the sand sea. So we got out of all of that rock and stone, and now we were into sand dunes proper. Very big ones. So we couldn't really drive across the sand dune sea because you would just get bogged down very quickly, but there were some firm dunes we were able to drive across, so we were able to snap a couple of photographs. There aren't many photographs of me actually driving in the sand sea because we were too busy doing the driving, really. So there was a couple of stops for a bit of posing, but really I had reached my objective, and that was to get here. So that was 2,600 miles I'd driven. I was with the Jeep, I was in one piece, and I was doing exactly what I wanted to do at the outset, which was to drive through the desert, just like Tintin, in a red Jeep. The only issue was I was in a green one, but it had red wheels. I suppose that sort of counts. Here we go, having a bit of fun in the sand dunes. Goodness, it was soft. Had to be really careful. Four-wheel drive, low ratio, and just take your time. No batting it along because we wanted to preserve the vehicle rather than destroying it. And there we go. The sun's going down now, and we're trying to find somewhere to camp up for the night. Not that cold in the desert at night, I'll be absolutely honest. But as soon as the sun comes up inside of that tent, I can tell you it is hot, and hot, hot, hot. We are here now. We are now pushing on towards the edges of Morocco and edging into Algeria. There were a lot of abandoned towns as we drove through. Here we are having a look at one. But I just cannot impress on you what that searing heat was actually like. These buildings have been mud brick and deserted for quite a while. Most people sort of moved away from these central desert areas, and there was just lots of abandoned bits and bobs. The thing is to remember is no matter where you look, and we're looking back there towards the sand sea, they always see people. They just seem to come out of nowhere. So there are a lot of people milling around in the desert, as I found out. Isn't as empty as you think it would be. So there we go. Now the heat is really kicking in. We've done quite a few miles. It's a couple of full days driving in the heat. The sand sea is disappearing behind us, and we're getting back into sort of these wadis or areas of soft sand in between some sort of vegetation. Interesting, there's a lake. You wouldn't expect it, would you? But there we go. After heavy rain in the winter months, then these lakes fill back up. Passing through that, we went into a canyon now. So we're sort of coming off of the plains and we're into sort of what could be described as hills. This was sort of a passageway between two escarpments with soft sand in between. This is a funnel for people to be able to get out of that part of the desert. And in there was this, we described as an auberge, so sort of a staying overnight. And I was absolutely so pleased to have a bed and a roof over my head. So in the evening, I decided to go exploring. So I'm off there walking up and down. And yes, fell number 3, straight into a wadi. And there was sand floating on the surface. And it was actually quicksand. So I managed to extract myself, quite luckily, from that. Climbed up into the escarpment. And here I am, looking down now into this sort of pass or gorge in which a lot of water was actually flowing to get out of one area of the sea sand and out into the sort of Saharan plain. So there you can see where we're staying, and the rest of the caravan are parked down there. All very peaceful. And then we heard something rather loud and noisy. Tried to take a photograph, couldn't see it. That's all I saw was dust, and something rocketed through. And if you could see there, a blue vehicle, and that is the Paris-Dakar practice run. I think that was the Volkswagen team. We caught up with them a bit later, and you can see some of their vehicles and support vehicles there. But they were absolutely rocketing through that. If goodness knows if people had been in the way, I don't think you would have survived 2 seconds. I tried to recreate that picture with a Jeep, but obviously can't really go those sorts of speeds. But yeah, what a frightening experience. Honestly, if you'd been sort of 2 or 3 meters to the left or the right, it would have been game over. So here we are, just exploring the same route as the Paris-Dakar, so I can sort of tick that off as well. And said I've done part of the Paris-Dakar. Okay, only about 100 meters of it, but there we go. Tick that box. The next day we were off. So this is us emerging out of that gorge, and now we're into some pretty hard going. You can see here it's just constant undulations which would just absolutely shake you and the vehicle to bits. You would get feedback through the steering wheel that would absolutely sort of decimate your arms and make them ache only after hours of driving. We really look forward to getting into this soft sand, but when you get to the soft sand, then you get the dust. So windscreen has to go up, and in some cases we're absolutely choking. So following the lead vehicle here, and that's really good because it keeps some speed up. There we go. There's a sort of the river had been engorged through all of the rain that had been happening the previous month or so, and so there was a lot of wading through. But the locals, they weren't really impressed by us. They'd seen it all before, and we did actually stop to try and help. Here we have a minibus that broken down, got bogged down, so we're actually trying to pull that out. I was sat there in the Jeep taking those photographs. Looked to the right, and this is just the average sort of pre-Saharan populace coming out looking for money again. And there we go into one of our first Oasis, which was absolutely fantastic to go in. Very lush green. You can see sort of the river's been diverted there. There's my co-driver. He's really enjoying himself in and amongst a bit of greenery. This is the Casbah, so the central sort of fortified area. This picture's pretty bad, reason being locals weren't happy with us taking photographs openly, so this is a bit of secret filming. I think this is a really good example of populations and settlements around the Sahara. It's sort of a mix of architecture. We've got sort of very basic concrete structures, a lot of mud structures, but very no sort of tarmac or concrete on the floors. But there you go, you can see sort of a very range of building there. You can see people hanging around, and we managed to convince a couple of them by crossing their palms and silver to go and have a look around one of the larger houses in this conurbation. There is the hearth. Yep, it's just basically a fire in the room. We looked close and we could see these sort of wooden pallets, and inside of those, when they're broken open, were the beginnings of silver jewellery. So all of them have a little bit of work going on in the houses to make extra income. So we popped out the back and out into the street, and hey presto, what I was always been looking for is some remnants left over from what I thought was World War II, but that was a post-war Jeep trailer there. On we go, back into the desert. Very, very hot now. Now we are in Algeria. We'd popped over the border, much to the interest of the local militia carrying around AK-47s and pairs of and wearing sliders. So we convinced them, move back into Morocco, and carrying on. But this is where sort of the heat's now really getting to us. You can see there's a fair speed. We're doing about 40, 45 on these nice flat open areas to get a good speed up. You really don't want to be doing that in undulations or near waddies, because you will actually damage the vehicle. We've done already. Fell number 4, this is me feeling the heat. Really, really hot, feeling really, really ill at the moment. Any bit of shade that I could find, and this is no exaggeration, I really was collapsed. See on the sign, you can see Timbuktu's not that far away. Quite a few days by camel, I expect. But the searing heat was really getting to me. I'd been wearing the wrong attire to start with. We'd been out in the sun, not under the shade. We'd lost our sort of fuel can once before and dragging it behind us. So we're looking very sort of amateur. We really needed to up our game. There you can see, again, just carrying on with the continuous moving through the desert. Very hot. I keep stressing this, but it's just unbearable. So it got to a point where I was feeling quite ill, very ill indeed. So I'm not driving now, I'm in the passenger seat, and we're being escorted into the local Oasis or local town so I can try and cool down. There was just no respite out in the desert. So it was realised that perhaps I wasn't very well, and we should get us in under some shade and running water. So here we are entering the local town. Great to see civilization again. It really felt like you'd come back from the complete wild, really, back into the real world. And here I am, just about standing up. Believe it or not, I'm propped up there. I'm really not feeling good on my feet, but a very hot drive. So that evening, I was not in a good shape. I basically collapsed. I was very, very ill, and this is me waking up sort of lunchtime the next day, in sort of a feverish state. I was really sad I couldn't go out and be with the rest of the gang, but I just had to stay in the room. I had to be near the bathroom. We'd had a little bit of light rain, I think, overnight, which is great, really cooled things down, but I was feeling quite ill. So now we're into my second day, and this is the hotel room I was staying in. So I think it was 2 whole days feverishly in this very hot room. This is the bed. Most of that is soaked with other people's sweat before mine was added to it. So always take a sleeping bag, your own sheets. I didn't leave the room. This was my life for 2 days. Most of those 2 days was spent in here. Yeah. So I was in a terrible state. I had to have a shower, I think it was every 2 hours, to try and get my core temperature down, because it was quite serious. I had a lot of visitors come to see and check up on me, but I was just delirious in the bed. Fortunately, I was able to get out and about when I was feeling a bit better, and here we are in one of the souks. There's me monkeying about, trying to buy myself a more suitable outfit for the hot weather. I did manage, and again propping myself up, still unsteady on my feet, but looking around the Oasis, I'm really relaxing and trying to cool down, really. While I was out and about, it was great to see sort of artisans working, so I popped in and had a chat with this chap. He spoke fluent French, that was great for both of us, and he's making some of these shields that go across the windows. After that, went back to the hotel, and during that storm I talked about, the lightning had actually struck the main fuse for the town, and that was it there on the table, completely blown out. So during my exploration, we went downstairs in the hotel, and it was absolutely fantastic. Sort of a time capsule from the 1960s. Things really hadn't moved on a great deal, and even have these posters here on the wall, which sort of genuine French and Dutch advertisements from the 1960s. There I am on the end. I'm getting a bit better now. Great, we actually found a bar. As long as we were able to eat, that's what the beans were in front of us. And whilst we were there, the barman said, "Would you like to see my magic trick performed by a tortoise?" So we said yes, didn't see what the harm would be, and was quite astounded to find the chap put a cigarette in the tortoise's mouth, and it puffed away like Billy. Okay, after that eye-opening experience, we were back on the road again the very next day, and now you can actually see we're on tarmac, so a lot of the driving moving forward now is going to be on metalled roads, which is really good, really giving a rest to that from that constant bumping. But some of the bridges were, and the road was, washed away, so you can see here there was quite a bit of fording to do. So we were in contact with each other by radio, so we're talking to the vehicle ahead, and then when he says it's okay to proceed, we go in, take it nice and slowly. We really don't want to get pushing that water up very high, and make sure it doesn't hit the fan in the engine or engulf the exhaust outlet. So nice and steady, high-ish revs, four-wheel drive, push through. And the Jeep, just cannot fault it, lovely bit of kit, straight through, not a problem. So once we're at the other side, it was midday again, getting quite hot, so we decided to shelter under some trees, and as soon as we did that, lots of children just appeared from nowhere. So we started having fun and games. So one of the children showed us how he could climb the trees to knock out the dates, which is really good. I set up a couple of impromptu classes with the locals, and here I am showing them how to do origami. So we're making birds, aeroplanes, etc. Not sure some of the children have done that before, so they were quite excited, especially to see the aeroplanes, throwing them around. So we worked quite closely with the boys. The girls weren't allowed to join us just due to cultural reasons. You can see them sort of linger around in the background. So after having that fun, back on the road again, and here we are in the next town trying to pick up provisions. Lots of really interesting shops, very entrepreneurial people, the Moroccans. Great to see all these different spices. Look at them all piled up there. The smells, the noise, the colours. It was absolutely fantastic. There was a lot of locals as well, and I do really appreciate what they were wearing. So I took a close look and thought, right, that chap on the right looks pretty good. Let's get that sorted out. And so here I am purchasing my local attire and a cream bun. My goodness, I couldn't believe what I'd found in the desert. Okay, that's enough for number 2. Next time, we've got Tragedy in the Surf in part 3. We're going into the main cities, so we're seeing how the other half actually live. We have to say our fond goodbyes to people we'd met along the way. We had to travel back through Spain in the freezing cold winter. I was reunited with my partner, so that was great. And there we are, I'm back home, and I'd learnt a lot of lessons. So we'll be going through that in part 3. So hope you enjoyed this. Thanks for joining me, and I'll catch you again soon.